Coruscant is one of the most interesting planets in all of Star Wars. Its verticality is unlike any other. As you spend your lunch at Dex's Diner, you not only are surrounded by towering skyscrapers, but there are also thousands of floors beneath you. I've always found the Coruscant Underworld in particular to be very interesting, almost like a man-made ocean, with deeper levels revealing stranger creatures. We have this really nice quote from Assault on Salonia. At the very bottom of the chasms, in the variegated pulsing of phosphor lights and signs, stone mites, conduit worms, and other scavengers flourished on technological detritus. Duracrete slugs blindly masticated their way through rubble. Hawkbats built nests near power converters to keep their eggs warm. Armored rats and spider roaches scuttled and hunted through piles of trash 2 stories high, and millions of other species of opportunistic and parasitic organisms, from single-celled creatures all the way up to those self-aware to wish they weren't, doggedly pursued their common quest for survival. Although, by the time of the prequels, most native Coruscant life had died off, according to the Wildlife of Star Wars Guide, the sprawling architecture of Coruscant mimics its natural ecosystems to some degree, allowing for the development of phantom ecologies, basically occupied by animals and niches brought to Coruscant from other worlds or mutated from other species. While many of these creatures are fairly simple, like the famous hawkbat or the various plants or animals which feed off Duracrete, others are far stranger. Arguably the strangest and most dangerous creature of Coruscant was the Coruscant Ogre. Wizards of the Coast well described this creature as a brutish dweller living beneath the gleaming spires of the upper city, while the Ultimate Adversaries Guide describes them as creatures devolved from an unknown humanoid species, perhaps multiple species. Despite their devolved nature, they are extremely powerful and can grow to up to 3 meters in height. Not only that, but they are very, very dangerous. Coruscant ogres have adapted to the pitch black of Coruscant's lower levels, not only by forming aptitudes for both violence and scavenging, but also by developing extremely powerful senses of smell and sight. And they could smell other living beings from over 20 meters away. As alluded to earlier, ogres have very simple behaviors. They react with violence upon encountering another living being, and typically attack with their fists or other very basic weapons like clubs or rocks. They're also powerful enough to break through doors and walls, especially weakened ones within the Coruscant Undercity. They were, however, present only on the very lowest levels of the Humanopolis, though similar species could perhaps be found on other very heavily industrialized planets. Due to the contaminants, pollutants, radiation, disease, heat, and everything else nasty in the low levels of the Coruscant Underworld, many ogres have developed strange or oversized limbs, as well as jutting teeth or horns. Cancers or illnesses are very, very common, and the average lifespan of an ogre, due to these factors as well as their propensity for violence, is likely under 20 years. As children on a visit to Coruscant, Jaina and Jason were trapped by an ogre who was intelligent enough to set up a cage trap. He was described as very hairy, covered in tumors and rotting flesh. He also had a pet and could speak some rudimentary basic. The history of ogres, as developed especially by Star Wars RPG guides, is really interesting. Because of the little bureaucratic oversight of the Coruscanti Wildlife Department during the days of the Republic, and I mean, there's not that much Coruscant wildlife, so it's to be expected, ogres were sometimes sold to crime syndicates. Some of these ogres were lobotomized in order to make them into a sort of organic droids. This project was meant to create what would be known as friendlies. However, the project was initially at least unsuccessful, leading to unfriendlies. And although breakthroughs were made, the droid brains used were too unreliable, and even a brief lapse in programming could result in death due to Coruscant ogres having immense strength. A similar program was continued by the Empire, who was less concerned about a docile worker like previous crime syndicates or a droid replacement, and instead wanted a very powerful being which they could somewhat control, only to release on an unsuspecting planet. Basically, they would allow it to cause a ruckus, then they would move in and destroy it. This basically makes them look like the good guys. Native Coruscant wildlife has been used like this before, and when I was writing this video, I actually, in my head at least, mixed up Coruscant Ogres with corridor ghouls. Ghouls, however, were not even semi-sapient and were essentially dogs. The New Republic basically used them as an element of danger for some of their secret facilities in the Coruscant Underworld. Although, of course, those ghouls were also a danger to any New Republic workers. Similarly, many Coruscanti maintenance personnel or engineers also had very negative run-ins with ogres, and they were just one reason among many why the lowest levels of Coruscant were all but avoided. Anyway guys, I hope you found this topic as fascinating as I did. Let me know if you'd like to learn more about Coruscant down in the comments. Today's question comes from Darth647, who says he's replayed Halo CE and has heard 343 Guilty Spark mention that the Flood can enter the atmosphere. And yeah, that's basically true. As the Flood build up more biomass, a planet's atmosphere, or I guess anything's atmosphere, will eventually be compromised. This means that the spore itself will also enter atmosphere, and that the only way to protect yourself will be with some sort of environmental suit, which I'm sure is what 343 alludes to several times. Individual flood spores themselves, however, can also be released without the sufficient biomass, which is one of the reasons why the Flood is so virulent and so deadly. Anyway, great question. If you'd like to have me answer one of yours, include it down in the comments with the hashtag AskEck. Anyway, until next time guys, this has been EckhartsLadder. Until next time, may the Force be with you.